gentlemen, it's the PHNX Cardinals post-game show, preseason week 2 edition. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's my co-host, Brack and Damon Dawg, behind the mic, producer extraordinary. The Arizona Cardinals drop game 2 of the preseason at Indy, 21-13. Shutout in the second half, more or less. Got a field goal, kind of. Shut out from a touchdown perspective. It felt like they were shut out. Really rough half for Desmond Ridder. We're going to talk about that. Clayton Tune better, but how much? The Arizona Cardinals, I think we can just come to grips with the fact that unlike maybe prior regimes, do not take the preseason that seriously.
No, they don't. I mean, they're trying to fill out the rest of their roster, right? They're trying to find out key depth pieces, and we're going to talk a lot about some guys who may have earned some jobs and some guys that may have played themselves out of a job. And I think like one of the key position battles that we had going into the camp, going into the final preseason game now against the Broncos a week from tomorrow, I think this quarterback two battle, man, the backup quarterback spot, Desmond Ridder hasn't shown anything to say, hey, this is his job and he's the guy going forward behind Kyler Murray.
It's like that school project. You think you're just going to be able to show up and get credit. If you're Desmond Ridder, you're just showing up after the Rondale Moore trade, assuming you're going to have a roster spot. And it's like, I don't know how anybody can confidently sit here and say, like, yeah, Desmond Ridder is the backup behind Kyler Murray. I think on the surface level, when the trade was made in the spring, everybody was like, that makes sense. Connect the dots. He's got experience.
Right.
He was a starter. He's got mobility like Kyler Murray. Yeah, we'll just put him at QB2. But then, oh, by the way, you have to actually play the games and you have to go through camp and practice. He has not looked good at all. Like, I'm not going to sit here as a Clayton Tune martyr and say he's been awesome. But, like, Desmond Ridder has done nothing to separate himself. And now in the most important time, where you've got competition from another team for 2 consecutive weeks, he has been unequivocally the worst quarterback on this roster.
He is. I'm laughing at the chat, not laughing at the performance by Ridder because it's unfortunate. But you know, when you talk about Clayton Tune, maybe it was necessary to bring in competition.
Yeah,
like you couldn't go the status quo with the quarterback room. Just from what we knew, like I know based on the people that make the decisions, or at least are on the coaching staff for the Cardinals, they had a lot of confidence in Clayton Tune. They love his makeup. They think he could be a backup in this league for 10 years, but he's got one he's got tape out there from one game.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a team that goes in with a quarterback that hasn't played a full season since 2020 and Kyler Murray, it'd be downright irresponsible. So they bring in competition in the form of a player-for-player trade that rarely happens in the NFL, and they send Rondale Moore to Atlanta, and they bring in Ridder looking for a change of scenery for both, and it hasn't benefited Ridder. Ridder hasn't taken this opportunity and taken a stranglehold of it. He's done the exact opposite, and you know Clayton Tune is playing himself into the backup role for Kyler.
Yeah, and I think Clayton Tune has yet to show everybody his ceiling because he's got mobility, he's got a big arm, and he's only in the second year of his NFL career. Like Desmond Ridder, have we seen the best and was his best at Cincinnati? He has not been a good pro. And we talk about it every time we go into one of these preseason games. You look at me befuddled. Like there was a team in the NFL last year that convinced themselves that he was good enough to be a franchise starting quarterback in the NFL.
Wild.
That's nuts. We're sitting here talking about, is he worth a roster spot? Right? Should he be QB2 or QB3 on this roster? And there was a team in the Atlanta Falcons, albeit everybody, Arthur Smith and company, were promptly fired for that notion. But, I mean, he won games kind of by default. Desmond Ridder beat the San Francisco 49ers, I think, like 2 years ago. That's unbelievable, in my opinion, based on what he's become now. I don't know if he's lost confidence. He clearly has to have some kind of like elite running game with Bijan Robinson to even be viable. But with the Arizona Cardinals, like, what's the point? What's the upside? And again, we're not going to sit here. I'm not going to be like Clayton Tune's awesome. But if you're asking me to be impartial and look with my eyes between the two, Clayton Tune's the QB2 of this roster right now. Now, could this roster change between now and the end of the preseason? Could they add another quarterback? Are they going to let these guys compete through next weekend's game, which is always a hot mess, this third preseason game, and what it's become? But I think it's a fluid situation, to say the least.
It's simple, but it's funny for somebody with child humor like myself. Dooley saying Desmond Shitter. You laughed at that too. I don't know why. But
I was gonna ignore it, but I'm glad you called it out. That's the kind of move we need on this post game
Damon,
show.
are we a unified front on Desmond Shitter's funny?
I mean, that's hilarious.
Yeah, okay, good.
That's
nice.
peak comedy.
That is peak comedy from our guy Dooley in the chat. Everybody else lighting it up as well. Merv Bustamante, R.I.P. Merv Busta move as Johnny likes to call it. And R.I.P. Desmond Ridder right now as the backup quarterback to this. Like, nothing's downfield. Nothing is downfield. He doesn't drop back after taking the snap from center and look downfield. At least you can give that to Clayton Tune. As we mentioned, when you looked at his 8 for 10, kind of were underwhelmed because you saw it play out yourself and it didn't match the box score necessarily passing. But he had 3 plays, of 10 yards or more in the passing game, and it wasn't aided by Yak, right? Like, he had some pretty throws. And you liked, how Clayton Tune finished the half, where I've seen 2 halves now from Desmond Ridder, and I haven't liked anything. Like, there hasn't been a single thing where I'm like, at least there's this. Good. And it was a near miss. If there's anything you can think of, it was a near miss to Blake Whiteheart, who couldn't haul in a pass.
Well, last week he had what I think is the worst play of the preseason thus far through 2 games, and a missed touchdown to Andre Bocellia in a clean pocket with a lollipop throw, and again would have won the Cardinals that game and had opportunities to win the Cardinals this game. The Cardinals are 0-2 in the preseason. Like, publicly, Jonathan Gannon doesn't like it. The Cardinals had way too many penalties today. You could argue whether or not it was a biased officiating crew. It was pretty bad, but you can't have 100 yards of penalties. They were really undisciplined, Damon, as you mentioned, toward the end of the game. So I just a lot of takeaways have to be negative.
I think Pacifico Light, he puts it kind of in. I mean, Tune is better than Ridder, but he's still kind of mid. Like, that's the situation they're in here. And that's often the case in backup quarterbacks across the league.
Yeah.
But, at some point, I think when you start to look at just where each quarterback is from year to year, where Clayton Tune was now last year at this time and where he is now, he's developed, he's made strides, where I think you could make the case that Ridder's regressed.
What do you think, Damon? Has Desmond Ridder shown you enough to warrant a roster spot, even if as QB3 for this team?
I mean, I guess it feels hard to cut him, but I think that maybe like the discrepancy here could be coming. Like, he looked okay for the Falcons at times because of the talent around him, maybe because they do have a pretty good skill position group, the Atlanta Falcons, and they had a roster that, like, with Kirk Cousins coming in, they felt was ready to make the playoffs immediately. With him playing with backups that can't elevate his game, like, he's just horrible.
Yeah.
Well, if you're the Atlanta,
do you think that if he were to get in with, like, who? So in everybody's opinion, if they get an opportunity with the ones, which we're not going to get the chance to see this entire preseason, I think that's clear now. Marvin Harrison Jr. played 3 snaps, and man, what a 3 snaps they were. And so now he's done for the preseason. No Michael Wilson, not even a Zay Jones. Not a Greg Dortch, not a Trey McBride, and then a starting offensive line. Who looks better, Ridder or Tune? Can you base your decision on that? Because what I'm basing my decision on is what the results we've seen so far through training camp and now preseason action, and it all points to Tune.
That'd be a pretty rough look for Jonathan Gannon to look at the rest of the roster and say, you know what, we know Tune's been better, we know Ridder's been terrible, but we're still just going to grandfather Tune in. Or excuse me, Ridder in. We're going to just give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think you want to operate with your roster like that. Like, Monty Austin Ford controls the 53-man roster, but Gannon controls the depth chart. How would you feel comfortable if you're Gannon and Drew Petzing tomorrow going into your private office and saying, yeah, let's keep Ridder as QB2? That'd be pretty gross. And the Cardinals didn't release a depth chart at quarterback this week for a reason. They purposely started Tune to see how he would respond. Mm-hmm. And he responded with this team had a lead before the end of the first half. Now, they also had 2 takeaways, but I'm not going to sit here and bang on a guy that Tune looked the part at times, and that's why he is our player of the game here on PHNX Cardinals postgame. And again, if you just look at the numbers, like total yards, 94, not great, but it's a half's worth of time. He only was allowed to throw the ball 10 times, 8 for 10, had that rushing touchdown, 99.6 QB rating. I mean, he was fine. He was solid. And again, that's what you're asking for out of a backup. He was unwatchable at times last year, specifically in that Cleveland game. You give him, I'll answer your question now. You give him all the weapons the Cardinals have. Like, I think he could put together a better stat line. Like, Desmond Ridder just feels like Let's check it down before the line of scrimmage. Let's play not to lose instead of at least Clayton Tune, I feel like, might try to stretch the field a little bit and force the issue. And listen, it could end up as a pick, but I've seen Desmond Ridder throw interceptions this training camp and preseason. I love Desmond Ridder as a member of the Arizona Cardinals. I wanted him to be the next Drew Stanton, Colt McCoy-esque, like long-term backup. Just hasn't been good enough. This is a production league. He's not producing.
Yeah, and it's you talk about Colt McCoy in a positive light there. Like when he came in, and in 3 games in 2021, he went 2-1. Right, he operated the offense
when he was asked to be the backup.
Yeah, and he's the quintessential backup. But then when you're staring down, Colt McCoy after getting banged up the previous season and having an arm procedure as your quarterback for a considerable amount of the season, and he's not performing, like, it's crazy. We're looking at back-to-back preseasons where it included joint practices where we can unfortunately bury one of the quarterbacks of the Arizona Cardinals.
Get off the team. Like, that's how we feel. That's how we feel.
It's super harsh. I mean, brutally harsh. But I don't know, like, is it a lack of a grasp of the offense? Because I still don't see a quarterback back there willing to take any chances, and why the hell not?
Here's what I'll say.
Okay.
Why is Desmond Ridder not running the football? Does anyone want to answer that question for me?
He had a terrible read on an RPO today that he had a lane if he would have kept the ball.
He's horrible if he's just a passing quarterback. If he's standing in the pocket and sitting there and throwing the football, like, what are we doing?
Well,
he's got to run to be decently successful.
You hit the nail on the head. He's horrible when he needs to pass the ball. Well, he plays quarterback. I think that's your answer right there. And I think if they were going to operate this way, I still would have preferred this team go out and get like a dual threat QB in the draft and have them run around and have preseason be fun and exciting, like the kid that I wanted last year, or the kid who's playing with the Patriots now. Like every year,
wanted Joe Milton?
Yeah, I mean, like, just throw a flyer at somebody like that. I have seen enough of Desmond Ridder, and unfortunately, we're going to be spoon fed another shit sandwich next week because I think he's going to play a lot next week. And again, if you're playing in a third preseason game, you shouldn't be a starter for a team. And if you're closing out a third preseason game, I don't know if you're on a roster or specifically on a QB depth chart. So I feel like the Arizona Cardinals, they've got so much good stuff going on. I don't want to bury the show, even though they took an L with the saga of QB2, QB3, because here's the general consensus of this chat, of this show, of this fan base, really. If Kyler Murray goes down, they're in big time trouble. Maybe they could keep their head above water for a game or two, maybe. But expecting Tune or Desmond Ridder or Joe Blow off the street to come save them, Kyler Murray needs to stay healthy for 17 games this year. He's making too much money. There's too much on the line. I don't want to see either of these quarterbacks play this year. So hopefully, if things break right, and they're formulating a plan right now, K1's not having any exposure in the preseason. That can't be by accident. The backup quarterback situation might be a little bit irrelevant at this point.
It's you either have to draft and develop one, or you have to go pay, premium backup quarterback dollars, right? And I don't know if this organization is going to be in that business. I think they're going to be more kind of like the Patriots were with Tom Brady, where they were drafting guys, day 3 every other year. Where you had guys, whether it was Cliff or, Kevin O'Connell or Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, like they had guys that they drafted, they developed, and they never made their way. And that was a testament to Brady being able to stay on the field. And hopefully Kyler Murray is going to turn a corner. But you're seeing the importance now that Kyler Murray coming out, ripping up training camp, and putting himself out of harm's way during the preseason, how paramount that is now.
Absolutely. And again, may the best man win at that position, but if the Cardinals had a chance to upgrade, they would upgrade. And they thought they were getting, I do believe they thought they were getting real competition for Clayton Tune. And it really, maybe this continues to light a fire under Clayton Tune and he's able to build on these performances. But I mean, right now, if you're Desmond Ridder, I don't really know what more you can not do. Like, I don't know if they're saving a roster spot for him at this point.
Yeah.
Like, you need quarterbacks to get through this last game. You and I were speculating, like, could they just sign somebody for this last game? Like, what's your expectations now a week from tomorrow, like does Clayton Tune and Desmond Ridder split the entire game again?
Yeah, I mean, you get creative, right? And we've been able to see Monty Ossenford already. He's been able to pawn players who the Cardinals don't view have any value to them.
Yeah.
Off to other organizations, because other organizations are naive. Other organizations have coaches and front office members that are arrogant, that think, oh, this team couldn't get anything out of them, but we can. Let's get our hands on them. So I think it happens with quarterbacks all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that you might be able to get something of value for a guy like Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
Potentially. I mean, is that what it becomes now? Like, they were able to trade Joshua Dobbs, who I think surprised a lot of people in how he was able to operate this thing last year, even though he won one game as Cardinal starter. But you saw a team that was in complete need of a quarterback, any quarterback in the Minnesota Vikings, and you got a 6th, 7th round pick potentially out of it. So can you do that? Can you flip Desmond Ridder before you need to set your 53-man roster? And I think that's best case now.
Yeah, and I can trash the guy, but still admit, like, maybe other NFL teams, they'll look at the tape, but they'll also see what the Cardinals saw. Like, this was a guy that played viable snaps for Atlanta and was considered a franchise quarterback, albeit by a middling franchise in the Falcons. So I'm not putting it past Ossenford if we wake up sometime next week and it's like Desmond Ridder's been jet set out of town by a 2026 7th rounder, right? There are so many teams. Like, we're talking about how depressing it is to watch Ridder in the second half of week 2 preseason game. There's a team out east in the New York Giants that have one of the most embarrassing situations at quarterback right now with Danny Dimes. Like, if you're their franchise, I'd be trying to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And you might be able, if you're Ossenford, to take that, beat up old clunker of a car you got and sell it to somebody, shine it up a little bit, and then just run away from the dealership real fast. Like that you could do that with Desmond Ridder. I'm not convinced they're
running. You're getting a good 40 time away from that.
Yeah, I'm taking off. I'm riding off on my bicycle that I brought. But in all seriousness, like, think about these teams in the NFL that just are trying to get through the preseason and then the regular season. Daniel Jones starting in preseason week 2 and looking horrendous against a second team defense for the opposing team. Like, Desmond Ridder could help somebody, their perception of a quarterback room, for those that aren't watching him in the preseason right now. I think he's absolutely tradable.
We got Johnny's 9th and last glizzy. I knew you were alive. I knew that you didn't all perish as far as the 999 challenge, but says this to me, says, Bo, we were the arrogant ones who thought we could get something out of Ridder. I don't disagree with that to an extent, but I think there was value in bringing in Ridder, or bringing in a quarterback to push Clayton Tune.
We like the trade.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was 2 players with their franchise where time and run out, right? And just to see what, Ridder could do under new, different offensive play calling, and see if he could resemble in a role that we felt was better fit for his backup quarterback, not starting quarterback, and has proven that it's probably not right for him either. So, get somebody in here, get some competition, continue to keep the heat hot under a guy like Clayton Tune, to not become complacent, not become content, and just say, well, I'm Kyler Murray's backup for the foreseeable future. Let me buy a house, let me get comfortable, and lay some roots here. It's like, no, I got to prepare. I got to be ready for this thing. And we're seeing that he's playing a lot better, even than he did in the preseason. Like, if you look at his preseason last year, this is night and day.
Yeah, just much more efficient, knows this offense considerably better just over time. And again, the Cardinals remain very high on him. But again, like, that doesn't mean that they're not going to explore other options as it pertains to their offense. But they took a very nonchalant approach last year until, the rooster came ahead with Joshua Dobbs becoming available, and the Cardinals forced that issue. It's going to be very curious with all of these kind of question marks surrounding the Cardinal roster. And we're, of course, talking about the quarterback 2-3 situation. Like, what do the final cutdowns look like? Is there an opportunity for the Arizona Cardinals to make a deal, send a player off, acquire a player, pick up a player off waivers? I don't know. I don't anticipate a bunch of veterans being released and somebody to come in, but I also watched a QB3 battle once upon a time during Arizona Cardinal training camp. It was Bruce Arians with Carson Palmer and Drew Stanton. And I remember there were a couple guys battling for a spot. And then after the final preseason game, they cut everybody, not named Stanton or Palmer, and they acquired Matt Barkley. And they're just like, you're our QB3 for the rest of the year. And he was on the roster. Could JG and Petzing do that? Could they just say, you know what, we're actually over both of these. We're going to try to get Clayton Tune on the practice squad, and we're going to go out and get a backup that's a little bit more serviceable. I don't know. Remains to be seen.
Yeah, it does. What was it up there? What was Jason saying about the drive in Minnesota there with Tune? Remember Tune's first drive in Minnesota last year? Yeah, he's come a long way. I mean, when he didn't pick up, where the pressure was coming and got strip sacked, lit up for a sack and fumbled for, it set him up basically for a walk-in touchdown on their first offensive play. It was 5th round rookie, problems. And, I don't know if he's been necessarily put in that. He's come to where, hey, he's picking up pre-snap a little bit better, but then post-snap still trying to figure out where to go with the football remains the issue. And that's going to be a maturation thing with Tune. And I think now, you have to make the decision. Are you willing to go with that? With the devil, with Desmond Ridder, who I think he's hit his ceiling, versus the devil you don't know with more of a developmental guy in Clayton Tune for a second straight year.
And don't get it twisted. This is the way the league works. These guys are prioritized for contracts and where they're drafted. The Cardinals won this trade. Rondale Moore, unfortunately, is done for the year. They could then say, okay, we're going to pivot off of Desmond Ridder. This trade's a wash for everybody, right? Whereas if Rondale Moore was lighting it up for Atlanta, maybe there's more of a sense of urgency to say, no, we need to see this trade through so we don't have egg on our face. I think it's best if all parties kind of wash their hands in the situation. Maybe you let Desmond go to another team, maybe that fits their style of play a little bit better. Maybe that's it. Maybe he's not a fit for Drew Petzing's offense. He was a better fit for what Arthur Smith would do sometimes on NFL Sundays. So whatever it is,
nobody was a fit for Arthur Smith.
That's true. That's true. Go look at Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. The
guy couldn't fit Bijan in correctly.
Where do you fit with our friends at Bet365? I hope with a new account, depositing $10 and getting hooked up with some bonus bets. We're going to talk about some young Arizona Cardinal defenders, offensive players included, that shine for this team, the rookies. But in the meantime, why don't you pop on over to Bet365, make yourself some money. We've got baseball action, live in-game betting. Of course, preseason action continues into tomorrow. And if you haven't had a chance to dabble yet, I'm telling you right now, it's the premier betting app. It's got a ton of users, right? So the best guess is if something's worth dabbling on, investing in, look how many people are offering it up, how many users they have, 90 million users worldwide, 780,000 events each year. Again, the endorsements go on and on and on. And this is the best offer you're going to find. So there are 2 instant offers. The bet and get offer, place a bet of $5 or more, get $150 in bonus bets. Fantastic. It's the one I opted to do. Or if you're looking to wager just a little bit more, up to $1,000, the first bet safety net offer by placing a bet up to $1,000. If your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund and bonus bets, which means if you have the Cardinals money line tonight, you place a cool $1,000 on it, you got $1,000 in bonus bets, no questions asked. But you got to dabble with our friends at Bet365. I was looking at over-unders. Again, with Bet365, I still think you can get the Arizona Cardinals over-under for total wins this year. It's 6.5, right? Bet that puppy up. Let's go. Get that over and make yourself some money. Download the Bet365 app today. Use the bonus code PHNX365 when you sign up. Got to be 21 years and older and physically located here in the great state of Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov for more information, Bo.
There's so many people crushing in the chat that I want to draw attention to them, but just on the heels of that, Shaft saying place $500 bet on Bet365 that Ritter's not on the team next weekend.
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
Other chats that we're going to get to, especially your super chats here shortly. Sorry guy Merv mentioned that struggling landing that gig, maybe because of his YouTube username, or maybe it's because he's not using Indeed.
Okay.
I mean, Indeed If you need to hire, if you're looking for a job, it's the only spot that you need to be looking on the internet right now. Indeed.com. If you're looking to hire right now, Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and matching engine that helps you find quality candidates and fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, messaging, so you can connect with candidates faster. You're no longer wasting any more time when it comes to hiring for your company. Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And the listeners of this show, PHNX Cardinals, you're going to get a $75 sponsored job credit when you get your jobs. It will get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's $75 to get your jobs more visibility. What is visibility? It's visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about it through PHNX Cardinals. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? You need Indeed, Merv.
You guys are crushing the chat. Like this video, by the way. Let's get this video 300 likes by the end of the show. Really helps push the show on the YouTube algorithm. That's the number one thing you guys can do to help us on top of subscribing here on PHNX Sports. Your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast is PHNX Cardinals, if you didn't know. Let's jump into some of these Super Chats. Producer Damon Dawg, if we could, first on the docket. Look at this potato bread. Sweet, sweet potato bread, $4.99. I'm convinced Christian Jones was a double agent working for the Colts the whole time. I like Christian Jones. I like the value of where they got him. I like the investment on the offensive line. Me clamoring for him maybe to take Kelvin Beacham's job as the swing tackle looks a little foolish now.
Yeah, Kelvin Beacham likes Christian Jones too. He's giving him some job security there as their swing tackle.
Yeah.
Nearly had 4 consecutive penalties, or 4 penalties, 3 consecutive did happen.
Not great.
Crazy. How about our guy B.A. Brian? We're keeping 2 and using an emergency exception.
For the quarterbacks.
Yep. I don't disagree.
AZ Moses.
You can find on the streets somebody that could match what Desmond Ridder is doing right now.
So you're on the record. You think it's going to be Tune as QB2 right now?
I do.
Interesting. Good for Clayton Tune. AZ Moses,
that
89.
Means crap. I mean, that's my opinion.
199.
Good for him.
It's done. Bo's reporting that it's done. JV Cam Thomas, line 1, wants an apology. Oh, man. Let's just jump into it, shall we?
What do you mean? Johnny was shopping him. He was shopping him at the Jets a week ago.
I'm telling you right now, he is being shopped. Let's talk about, hey, Jets, let's take a phone call.
Is he off the table, Johnny?
No, fuck no. How about a fourth and a sweetener, Jets? You like a little bit of this? You see this action in preseason game 2 sacks? That do anything for you, Robert Saleh? All right, we're gonna get to that here in a second.
Okay.
Jason, $5. All game, I had to keep reminding myself that these are all second, third, and fourth stringers because, damn, there were times I was thinking another 4-win season. I mean, the Cardinals, preseason, you already have to take it with a grain of salt. I love football is back, kind of. The Gannon and his staff do not respect the preseason at all, and that's great. If it works out for him and we're sitting here in January and this team's punching a ticket to postseason football, we're going to say, perfect, it worked out beautifully. But if we fast forward, 3.5 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, and they lay an egg against Buffalo and they come out slow against Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams at home and they lose against Detroit, people are going to be like, hey, you probably should have played a preseason game. And I think they have enough talent where they feel like, okay, we're getting exposure against a good Colts team in open practice competition. We're doing a lot of hitting in Glendale. We saw it on display at training camp. So, I am willing to give Gannon, Rallis, Petzing the benefit of the doubt with this. But like last year, we really didn't have anything to compare it to because they were playing 2 quarterbacks that inevitably weren't going to start for them, one of which was jet set it out of town. So this is really the first time, Bo, that we've seen JG basically put his preseason plan in place and say, we're not playing anybody.
Right.
You have Mahomes out there doing no-look passes.
I know, which is dumb. As far as he holds it tight to the vest. And then you come to find out it's like it doesn't matter. They're starters. They're not going to play serious snaps in the preseason.
Yeah.
And we won't be. It's like fooled me once, fooled me twice. And it's like next preseason, if you hear me in a press conference ask about who's playing in the preseason game, then shame on me at that point because I haven't learned from what we.
Yeah, you dummy. Stop asking that question,
idiot. Get out of there. Pull his credential. Yeah, I mean, but it's they utilize it for position battles and depth. That's all.
I do want to make a quick point here because I feel like the Cardinals are very much improved, and I feel like if things break right and a bunch of people don't get injured, they can make the playoffs this year. But I do think, and you tell me what you think on this, through 2 preseason games, we might still kind of at certain positions be seeing the lack of depth built as this rebuild continues on. They're playing a lot of young players, first time exposure, but like, you watch the second team O-line and the second team, defensive back player, the third team defensive back player. Like, it's not great, right? And so it's like, should we just maybe kind of give them the benefit of the doubt? Do they need another offseason on top of that to really kind of, because like you'd be lying to yourself. Like, we watched the Chicago Bears earlier today, and you told me you think they're going to have a pretty good season.
Yeah.
This is like, what, year 3 of their rebuild. So they're kicking everybody's ass in the preseason. They've got depth for days. I don't think Gannon is ever going to prioritize the preseason, but I would be surprised like next year if the games didn't look dramatically different. Like, they had a bunch of guys that were established and that were fighting for roster spots or fighting up the depth chart, and they had another set of free agents and another set of draft picks. I don't know. I still, watching these games, this team feels still a little thin in the meat of their roster.
Yeah, but if you look at last year's draft class and their performance in the preseason, I think that you probably would have been like, I wanted to see more from player
That's
A, B, C. And they started to kind of find their way probably late October, early November, right? And I think that that's what you're going to see similarly with this draft class. Like, that, it's guys that they found that are high character guys that have, are dialing in their pro process and are going to start, things will start to click, more and more they get reps in practice and hopefully aren't relied upon to make, a big impact for this team outside of the, day 1 and day 2 picks that they made, right? We're thinking Marv, we're thinking Darius Robinson, we're thinking Max Melton, right? And then maybe like a Trey Benson and a Tip Ryman in a blocking role, right? His very specific role that we're finding isn't much more than that. But look, I'm not ready to say, hey, he didn't draft any guys that are going to be depth pieces just because of their performance through their first 2 pro games.
That's fair. Fair enough. Speaking of performance, let's highlight some performances from tonight, specifically from a couple defenders for the Arizona Cardinals. It's counting cards here on a PHNX Cardinals post-game show. And we mentioned him in a super chat. Here he is, Cameron Thomas. Really could have been the player of the game.
Joe Douglas, line 1.
2 sacks. That's right. One of those was the most gimme sack at the end of the game where the Colts were basically trying to run clock. But nonetheless, he was active around the ball, had a couple QB hits, looked very much like a 3rd-round pick that had 3 sacks and had, some momentum as a rookie 2 years ago under Vance Joseph. So I want to talk about Cameron Thomas here in a second, but I want to highlight everybody else. Rabbit Taylor Demerson is a player that everybody should get to know now because when you see his talent, it jumps off the screen. Last week, Bo, it was his run defense and his ability to tackle. And this week, it's his coverage skills as he has an interception and setting up Clayton Tune's rushing touchdown to end the half. I mean, that I'm really ready to call it. This is a hit of a draft pick already.
Yeah, he is. Like, he just plays. His football speed is very fast.
Yes.
And you like that. And I also like he's got a great defensive back mentality, right? Mindset where, again, today he made a play where you're like, damn, like that's on Rabbit, where he probably should have wrapped up a quarterback on a run that was able to, move the chains for a big 3rd down or 1st down and then set up a touchdown. Before the end of the half, he makes up for it because he's not sitting there dwelling on, hey, I should have wrapped that guy up. Where the previous week, was part of a bust in coverage that led to a big play before halftime for the Saints. So love what we've seen so far from Rabbit Taylor Demerson. Flying all around the field would be great. And those the big nickel packages with Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker, and then potentially as an in-house successor to Budda Baker potentially.
Yeah, I think with each passing day and game and performance, like he's helping himself. And let's let Budda have his case here with a phenomenal 2024 season. Xavier Thomas, the last member of Counting Cards, ho-hum, another sack in his 2nd preseason game, totaling 2 here for the preseason. But again, he was all over the football, flashing off the screen, on the screen, for those in attendance, violent player. I don't think he's ready to be an every down player or a starter. I think we saw that in the QB scramble to end the first half. Just gets lost in containment a little bit. But again, he's a rookie. He was a 5th rounder for a reason. I know he played a lot at Clemson in the ACC, but in terms of, we always talk about like who can get home, who's got pass rush juice and ability that you can't teach, he's got that. So whether he comes out and he becomes like a rotational guy, if he takes over for Dennis Gardeck next year, whatever, like this is another good draft pick. This is good value. This is not, pardon my French, wiping your ass with a 5th round pick that Steve Keim used to love to do. These are contributors now. Taylor Demerson, Xavier Thomas were often the best players on the field defensively for the Cardinals tonight. They were 4th and 5th rounders. That's the beauty of building through the draft. These lottery tickets that so many times with the Cardinals felt like they were just kind of throwing them out and seeing what stuck. Now the Cardinals have a philosophy. They know who fits their scheme. So specifically on this version of counting cards, these latter 2 players, they have built themselves quite a resume here in the preseason. I don't think they're in line to be starters yet, but like they're going to play a lot this year for this defense.
Yeah, they are. And it's I wanted to get back to that Cameron Thomas thing, but yeah, you're right. I mean, as far as what Xavier Thomas was able to accomplish, it's still a funny clip watching the left tackle fall down. And it was great. But for Thomas to still, you got to make that play. And he did. Yeah. I mean, he was able to finish the sack, even though we got Brian, crushing Victor Dumakaji, who couldn't finish the sack all game. We had 3 times where he had an opportunity to take quarterback down. It's like guys who can finish and put the QB on the turf. That's why it's a premium position. And Xavier Thomas is taking advantage of an opportunity.
And if you're Victor Dumakaji, like, are those some of those like schemed up for you to have a success and have a free lane? Then you really got to take advantage. Yeah. If you're put in a position by Nick Rollis or Jonathan Gannon, like, can't come back and just be like, sorry, guys. I mean, Victor Dumakaji's missed sack in the first half directly cost the Cardinals a touchdown defensively because that drive is over if he finishes the quarterback. So let's talk about Cameron Thomas. So 2 years ago was a 3rd round pick out of San Diego State. We thought had a promising future with this franchise. Last year, before the preseason, I'll never forget this, when the Cardinals we were at the uniform unveiling, they had Cameron Thomas out there. Yeah. And we're like, man, this is going to be a nice chess piece for JG's defense. Yeah. And then week 1 came around and he had a defensive touchdown. And then we didn't hear from him again. And it was almost like he was buried on the depth chart. And I wonder if myself, others, did we bury him too quickly? I'm not going to say he's made this team and he's, revitalized his image and his, rapport is perfect with the coaching staff, but maybe Cameron Thomas needed an opportunity to be coached by JG and Rollis for an entire year to pick up on what they like to do. Yeah. Because with this kind of effort today, this is not nothing. Cameron Thomas, his pass rush ability tonight also flashed off the screen to the point where if you're asking me Lucetta or Dumakaji or Cameron Thomas, easy decision.
Yeah, and I think it took Cameron Thomas learning how to play teams. I think it was probably something he didn't have to do at San Diego State. He was their kind of war daddy defensive player, for the Aztecs, and it's not a big time conference. There was the Mountain West. So at the time, before all the shakeout, but I think they're figuring out ways to utilize his skill set. Where last year, what we were figuring out, he wasn't a scheme fit, right? But then they asked him to bulk up a little bit. We saw on the set his first sack where he was playing inside. He wasn't playing outside linebacker. Still his position group. He's still going to get a ton of snaps there. But now his versatility might fit, and be tailored more to where he can find and be more impactful for this team.
Yeah, the Cardinals outside of a Xavier Thomas flash, like most of their pressures tonight came from the interior defensive line. Like LJ Collier had a sack early, looked good. Cameron Thomas had his really own genuine sack from the 3 or 5 technique defensive tackle position. So that's encouraging. Again, that's another chess piece. You're not going to replace Ojulari with one singular player at this point unless you go out and get a Hassan Reddick. So other guys have to make up the slack, and you just got to keep pumping them into the lineup. But he was, dare I say, a relentless game. I'm anxious to hear JG when you chat with him on Monday, like how far he's come, because I think, a lot of people assumed, myself included, like he was probably just going to be cut. And that would be another, the coup de grace on Keim's last draft. A bunch of guys, they had Majay Sanders, they cut him. Kudos to Cameron Thomas. He's put enough on film, I think, this preseason. If the Cardinals do part ways with him, another team's going to give him an opportunity to come in and compete. I think it would be a mistake, though. He had a 3rd round grade for a reason.
Yeah.
He showed enough ability, albeit with mixed results. He at least you can envision a scenario in which he's a contributor.
Well, he has to be versatile, and he is.
Yeah.
And he, like I said, he learned to play teams. I think in the new kickoff rule, he's got a role. And then if he can get after the quarterback, if he can be one of the guys that's, one of the better ones that just, pinning their ears back and getting a sack potentially, I think there's value there. He shows his value. So when you start kind of counting players in that room, right? You've got Zaven Collins, you've got Dennis Gardeck, you got Xavier Thomas, who we feel pretty confident about it now at this point. And then you've got probably 2 to 3 more spots there. And I think Cameron Thomas is firmly in that fold, don't you?
Yeah. And I think when you have an ability in a game like this to really kind of take over, and I don't know what all the metrics are going to say about how he did in run defense. I know the Colts look like they ran the ball pretty effectively in the second half, but if you're Jonathan Gannon, like Victor Dumukagey, not impressive. Jesse Luketa has a strip stack that was taken away, so kudos to him. But this group, like the quarterback room outside of K1, you're just underwhelmed by it. Like you want to be able to go out and help yourself. But then in nights like tonight, you're thinking, okay, maybe we can make the most of it. Do you think that they think to themselves, Bo, like, oh yeah, we had a revamped game last week. We only had 1 sack, minimal pressures tonight, albeit against the Colts QB3. We had like 3 or 4 sacks. Do they think to themselves, we might be good at pass rusher? Are they naive to think that?
No, I think I think this team knows where they have a need at, and they need to fill it at some point.
Yeah. Darius Robinson not playing.
They still have guys that can play snaps at the NFL level and make a difference, but can you, through the marathon of a 17-game season, can you consistently get that? I don't know if it exists right now.
I need to pull a Johnny here and say Victor Dumukagey can't be on this roster in the year of our football lord 2024. Respectfully.
With all due respect, Damon.
It would be embarrassing if he was on this roster, with all due respect.
Like how I just don't like
and that's why it's so tough about preseason, and that's when you get down to like the minutia of building a roster, and you've got a guy like Victor Dumukagey who has 3 near sacks. It's like at this point, at this stage in his career, he is who he is. That's been him every single season of his career, coming out of Duke as a 6th-round pick. Like, he's been close. There are a lot of guys that are so close in this league, but if you don't end up finishing the play, that's usually the separator, right? And I don't think anybody would disagree with that on Victor Dumukagey. I mean, if you need a guy that can play teams and that can be, depth at the pass rush, fine. But we just can't see a significant snap load from Victor Dumukagey.
And we already got to talk ourselves into the fact this team's going to start Dennis Gardeck and Zaven Collins, for 17 games this year.
Yeah,
like that. You're asking this fan base to just conjure up a lot of confidence for a group that is largely unproven, respectfully. Or if they are proven, like Dumukagey, like we know what they are. Luketa, we know what he is. Maybe Cameron Thomas is showing signs of life. But again, Dumukagey has had big preseason games. Like, who do you trust on this roster? I'm asking everybody in the chat right now.
They want you to freak out. Our guy Jason wants a rant about the pass rush group.
Oh, well, here you go. Week 1 against the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. Who does everybody in the chat think can get after Josh Allen, make him uncomfortable week 1? I can count on one hand who that is. And a part of those players might play in the secondary. Like, I think it's Justin Jones and Darius Robinson, maybe Budda Baker off a blitz, and maybe Kazir White in an inside linebacker blitz. Maybe that's about it. Maybe a little bit of Mac Wilson. I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing at this point. Notice I didn't name either edge rusher. So I think right now, like, that's the reality of your pass rush situation for 2024. And you bet your bottom dollar, if you're Monty Austin-Ford, and we reported this late on the show this week, like, you got to feel a sense of urgency. If there's a player out there that can help you to at least explore that. They worked out Carl Lawson. They were in on Matthew Judon. We reported earlier this week. They have inquired about Hassan Reddick. Where that goes, I have no idea. I have no idea if Reddick is going to be made available via trade, although it's not reporting to anything Jets related. The Cardinals would then have to give him a new contract. But it's the missing piece of a defense that looks like it's going to have a lot of really fun, unique, and interesting pieces to get them through 17 games. But you cannot screw around if you're Arizona. You don't open the season with Sam Howell and Daniel Jones like last year. It is murderer's row with Pro Bowl quarterback after Pro Bowl quarterback. And if you feel like we can start slow and pick up steam in the second half, if you're 2-6, nobody's going to be talking about anything other than draft picks, right? We don't want to live that reality. Keep your head above water, stay around 500 by the time you hit Halloween. And then, play your Carolinas or your Seattles and your New Englands. But in order to do that, man, you got to be able to bring these quarterbacks down.
Yeah, it looks like you have just elite pass rushers against those woeful offenses, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to get Bryce
You can get
Young
it done with this group right now. Yep.
You could. But if you're going up against 6'5" Josh Allen and not 5'10" Bryce Young, it's a little bit tougher.
I got people in the chat saying Gardeck is a heart. I'm not giving him enough credit. Like, I don't listen. He's a solid NFL rotational pass rusher.
Yep.
If you're sitting here telling me he should be the starter for 17 weeks, come on. What are we doing, guys? I think that's a little bit of a byproduct of we like him because he's fun and he's wacky and he's got long hair and he runs around. Like, I get it. He's an easy guy to like. I like him. He's a great person, and I'm happy he's had an opportunity to play out his entire
weird
contract.
Way of showing you like him.
I can say he deserves a roster spot while also saying, like, in no world should he be a starter for 17 games for a team that has postseason aspirations. Yeah. I have aspirations for snacks and goodies. You know where I'm going? I'm going with our friends at Circle K, America's Thirst Stop. We had some Circle K goodies tonight in the studio. They were aces. They were fantastic. And again, if you're looking to save some money and get great stuff, why not check out our friends, America's Thirst Stop, Circle K, the new free membership program. Save 25 cents per gallon your first 5 fill-ups. Save 3 cents per gallon every single day. Right now, time's running out. It's been all summer. I hope you've taken advantage. I have. You can get any size Polar Pop or Froster for just 79 cents through September 3rd here in Arizona. It's outstanding, right? It's triple digits here in the desert. Stay hydrated with our friends at Circle K. Find it in the app under Inner Circle-offers. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details, Bo.
Yeah, love the Inner Circle. Love going into their beer cooler and loading up, right?
I'm making a stop after this show, actually.
Absolutely.
Smart.
It's load up in some frosty cold ones and do it with disregard now, because we got our friends over at Z Biotics.
Ooh.
We love Z Biotics. I got to tell you, it's a game-changing product that we partner with over here at PHNX. Are we the Z Boys?
That's what they're calling us.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
The Z Boys on Z Biotics, because it's such a game changer. It's called Z Biotics pre-alcohol. Let's just face it, after a night of drinks, we aren't built like we used to be, right? And we don't bounce back the next day like we used to. We have to make a choice. Either have a great night or you have a great next day. There's no in between. But we found out when we became the Z Boys, the Z Biotics pre-alcohol, we can tell you that there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking. It's Z Biotics pre-alcohol. Every time the Z Boys get together, we take our pre-alcohol before our drinks, and we notice the difference the next day. And even after a night out, we can confidently say that having a couple pops, having a couple pumpkin porters, or whatever it may be, we don't have to worry about that any longer, thanks to our Z Biotics. So I gave pre-alcohol a try when I had a couple cold ones and drank it before the first one, and it wouldn't even believe how on top of my game I felt the next morning. Go to zbiotics.com/PHNX cards and get 15% off your first order when you use PHNX cards at checkout. Pre-alcohol is backed by 100% money back guaranteed. If you are unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no question asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/PHNX cards and use the code PHNX cards at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z Biotics, for sponsoring this episode of PHNX Cardinals. Tell them the Z Boys sent you.
Let's see those super chats. Damon Dawg. The Z Boys are running wild here on a Saturday preseason. Moses is back, 89. Ridder, Thomas, and a 4th for Hassan. JB approved the trade. Stamp it right now. I approve it. Get Hassan Reddick on Mr. B's private jet. Let's go. Let's get him. Let's save him from Robert Saleh. And everybody in the New York football landscape is about to be unemployed in 6 months. So we're trying to save Hassan Reddick. Let's get him to where a team is trending up. Let's get him away from those losers with the Jets and the Giants, please. Get him away.
Our guy, Brian, this preseason is rookie development. We need guys to make mistakes and be coached. This is development 101. Remember this mid-season. Absolutely. Couldn't agree anymore.
Next up, 199 Arjun. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who is Rabbit's ceiling, you think? Also, how was Max Melton, who did debut today, number 16, knocking some rust off? Look, Max Melton, by the way, looked good early in training camp, then had a little bit of an injury, so just ramping that up. I wouldn't take too much of his performance today outside of just getting him some exposure. But Rabbit's ceiling, I mean, like, he looks a lot like a youthful Jalen Thompson out there to me. But here's what separates Rabbit, I think, from eventually if he were to take over for Budda Baker is, and I love Budda, like this kid's got ball skills. Like they prioritize ball skills from their defensive backs, whereas that's never been a huge part of what Budda Baker does. He's a lightning rod. He's a missile at the line of scrimmage. He's an all-time great. And again, like just because Taylor Demerson could be the heir apparent, I don't want to knock Budda Baker on what he's about to do for the Cardinals in 2024. With that being said, like this team, we know definitively prioritizes certain positions as key positions and then others as kind of second-tier positions. We know definitively safety is one of them. So if you're trying to score at home, do the math. If the math's not math, then let me help you out. They're paying 2 high-priced safeties this year, one of which is a free agent next spring. They drafted a kid in the 4th round. He very much looks the part, looks like a hit. Guess what they're probably going to do next year, barring something unforeseen, if I had to guess right now.
Yeah. So that's your – who do you think he comps well to?
I don't know. Like I think it's too early to say that like he's like a – is he small? How big is he?
He's a little bit on the shorter side, but I mean I think he's about 5'10".
Let me look it up. This is not good podcasting.
Yeah.
I'm doing it live on air. His pro comp, let's see. Do they have a pro comp on NFL.com when he entered the combine landscape? They don't even have his profile up, so that's good. Let's see. Pro Football Network, did they do a pro comp on him? I
think when he was playing at a high level, like a Quandre Diggs.
Okay, sure. He was a redshirt senior, so he played a lot of college football. He's about 5'11", 200 pounds. But what is the general consensus with this rookie class? They all played a ton of college football.
Yeah.
Xavier Thomas was at Clemson for like 6 years.
Yeah.
Taylor Demerson was at Texas Tech for 5 years. So these guys should be ready to play.
Wasn't Xavier Thomas on their last national championship team at
yes.
Clemson? Yeah.
He played with Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah. I think that, Demerson can obviously play. And it took Budda in his 4th season to get his first pick.
This kid's got a pick, albeit in the preseason.
Yeah, it's in the preseason. But like you said, I think the ball skills are considered right there already through 2 games.
Well, Budda was a full-time special teams player, and he made the Pro Bowl as a rookie because he was a phenomenal tackler.
Yeah.
But, like, here's something else Budda didn't have to his advantage. Like, Budda didn't have Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, competent coaching.
Yeah, from the start. He had Steve Wilkes and Cliff Kingsbury, unfortunately, for a large majority of his time here, which is too bad.
Our guy Greg, 199 Super Chat. Cam saw your Reddick proposal, JV. You're next.
I would love to be next. I would love for this. I would love to be the catalyst, Greg, for waking up this pass rush group because they had a good night tonight.
Yeah.
But they also, gave up 6 yards per carry, and the Colts, dominated the second half. So it's not gonna get too crazy. But Cameron Thomas has a place on this roster if he puts forth this kind of effort. Like I totally content with him sticking around. Doesn't mean I love this group, but he earned a lot of respect. Not from me necessarily, but I just, in general, around the NFL with his performance tonight.
I saw in the chat, this was a little debate going on about Elijah Jones. Somebody had asked, and forgive me for not remembering who posted it.
A couple people, I think.
They were talking about Jones and how he struggled. And is he going to make this roster? I don't think there's any way they're cutting a 3rd-round pick.
No. And they're so deep at corner now, it's crazy to say
but
that.
I will say, like, Darren Hall had another pass breakup today. Darren Hall played very well in the joint practices, and Darren Hall had a great preseason game. I think Darren Hall is making a case, but not to make Elijah Jones, expendable. I don't think he is as a 3rd-round pick.
I also think, like, Isaiah Adams had another tough night. Like, some rookies are just going to take time. Here's the tough part. Cardinals had 7 picks in the top 100. For the first time since like the Dallas Cowboys in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's 7 picks, I think, in the top 90. Most of them look like they're going to be pretty good. You're going to get a couple that
All right, let's put the guys good and bad.
Okay. So Marv is good.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Robinson is good.
Didn't even play tonight, folks.
I think Max Melton's good. Like I'm not. He's not overwhelmed. He looked good in camp.
Yeah.
And then you go Trey Benson. I think is good
Today.
Good.
We talked about him a lot at halftime. If you missed that, Trey Benson had a fantastic first half. 9 carries, 43 yards. He had a big 19-yard rush, and then he had a 20-yard rush that was taken off the board from a phantom holding call on Christian Jones.
Like if he's bad, we'll come back and eat this. Like I think he's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, look at.
So there's 4. So you're 4 for 4 for the most part.
Your top 4 picks,
varying levels, right?
Okay.
And then
let's get into it.
Tip.
There he is.
Isaiah Adams. Isaiah Adams before Tip Ryman.
Okay.
Isaiah Adams. I would probably go.
You got to put in
not so good
for
right
2
now.
games. Not great.
Not great. Tip Ryman, I'm going to put in the good because what they're asking him to do, he is performing. He had a good block tonight. He has not looked overwhelmed. I would put him in the no based on do I think it's good value? I don't. So it would be a no. But for what they're asking for him,
right?
And he caught a pass, he's going to be a contributor. So that's 5.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah. Tip Ryman, you just have to understand what his role is. And Johnny, what's his role?
He's a blocking tight end.
That's it.
They have no expectations of him in the passing game.
Somebody reached out to me about him in fantasy. Don't sniff around that. There's no value there. There's no value there.
I think he's got a better chance to become like a H-back, fullback than a receiving tight end. Elijah Higgins isn't even dressing for these games.
Right.
Elijah Higgins is their number 2 tight end.
Yeah.
Tip Ryman is a 6 offensive lineman. If they run the ball as effectively as they did last year.
And they'll telegraph what they're doing. You'll see a 12 personnel where Higgins isn't on the field and Tip Ryman's out there. Guess what they're doing? They're running the football. 2 out of 3 times they're going to run.
They're probably thrilled with Tip Ryman.
Yeah.
So with that being said, he's a hit.
But his role is the block. It's not, guys, nothing else. And that's it. That's fine. That's what they want.
I mean, it's not fine to me.
It's not 82nd overall, top 100 pick. I understand that. I'm with you as far as the value there.
And then Elijah Jones is a miss right now, or not great. So you, out of 7 picks, you look like you're going to get 5 immediate, either stars in Marv and Darius's case, or immediate contributors that are going to help you. But here's the great part about that. So let's say you go 5 for 7, which anybody would take based on draft odds. Your very next pick looks like a fucking stud in Taylor Demerson. So then you're talking about 6 of 8, and then your pick after that is Xavier Thomas. So then you're 7 of 9. I mean, Sanderson Ford, I'm blowing him shit for this pass rush group right now. I mean, he takes advantage of every single pick that he has. And Christian Jones was mixed in there as a later 5th rounder, which looks like a miss right now. So we'll just take it as it comes. 7 of 10 look like really good players for this team already. And I'm not even taking into account Isaiah Adams could be great next year. He could be great by Halloween. He could really put it together. The learning curve is immense, right? So they needed to crush it from a draft perspective. They needed to own this draft with the amount of picks that they have. I think they got to be really pleased with the results early.
Yeah. How about the super chat about Tip Ryman? Alberto E, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Tip stood up Chase Young last game. He did. A nice little block there.
If this is all they want from him, and they're like, man, this is so great. We got exactly what we wanted. Everybody thinks we're stupid because we took a tight end that can only block in the top 100, but they're going to be laughing, and we're going to have the last laugh. Whatever. It's fine. I'm not going to stress about it because this is part of what they want to do.
You kind of have stressed about it a little bit. It's okay, though.
I've moved on to the pass rush. It's fine. Xavier Thomas being as productive as he has made things easier, right? I think, we're going to have to see how this draft class shakes out across the NFL landscape. But, right now, nobody around Tip is lighting it up. I mean, have we seen a Roman Wilson highlight or anything like that? They had so many picks, they were allowed to splurge a little bit.
It'll also be interesting to see once these rookies who flash, right, how they look with the starters, with the players that are going to be playing on Sunday. Because we haven't seen that. They've had to hold their own on their own. Right. There's the plays are made by them making them. And it's not hey, all the infrastructure is there defensively or offensively.
Right.
For the Trey Bensons of the world, even Elijah Jones's case, right. Going out there and sometimes being on an island and struggling a little bit like he did. How would he look where, he's not, staring down, having to just cover for as long as he has because, the fourth or fifth string, pass rush isn't getting to the quarterback.
Everybody like this video, subscribe here to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. Become a diehard. Go PHNX.com. Pick up a free hat and or shirt. Bo and I are repping the number 18 collection right now. The hottest new tees you can find in the Valley or anywhere else. The number 18 collection. You can't rep a number 18 jersey yet here in the Valley, but you can rep a Maserati Marv tee, the MHJ tee, which I think is the best shirt we've ever done, the Math tee, which is what Bo's rocking right now. Again, I got all three. I'm about to order duplicates because I wear these so much. Softest material, best material you can get. And again, pick one up for free right now. Becoming a diehard at gophnx.com. When you become a diehard, boom, you get 20% off all future orders. Perfect time to load up your gear ahead of the 2024 season for the Arizona Cardinals. And what better way to support our show than repping the number 18 collection, Bo?
Yeah, and if you're excited about this Cardinals season, as you should be, you got to check out what's going on our Miami trip. We're headed to Miami. PHNX Cardinals heading to Miami thanks to our friends over at True Fan Travel. Do not miss out on what's going to go down because True Fan Travel is going to take out all the heavy lifting as it is concerned going on road trips, watching your favorite team play ball. I mean, what they're going to do is they're going to get you round trip airfare. They're going to get you to and from the airport to your hotel in this Miami hotel that we've got set up for you. It's on the beach. It's beautiful. You're not going to want to miss out on this one. Also, we've got several things set up, like how about a welcome party? You're going to get to meet some Cardinals alumni. We've got a booze cruise. We've got so many great things in line, including the game between the Dolphins and the Cardinals on that Sunday, October 27th. The Fins versus the Cards. Tua versus Kyler. Can't wait to see that. Make sure you lock in your trip right now. TrueFanTravel.com. More details. GoPHNX.com/events. Damon is getting married there. He hasn't found that lucky special gal yet.
Congrats.
But
thank you.
It's happening on the trip. No best man. Maybe you.
Possibly
we'll
you.
See. That's perfect.
Possibly you.
Yeah. Join the fun. You're not going to want to miss out. So many people are locking in their trips today. You should do so as well.
Again, we're fired up about our Miami trip. So much good stuff going on with this podcast. And again, we got one more preseason game to put in the books before things get real in the regular season. And we'll continue to preview this roster as it gets churned here, as the roster churns 53 and the fight for it, where the Arizona Cardinals opt to add any significant players between now and week one. We're going to be primed and ready to go. But in the meantime, like this video, subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. Everybody go to your mobile device, your smartphones, find PHNX Cardinals, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow along because we do drop audio-only podcasts you can't get anywhere else, Bo.
No, you can't. You're going to want to check it all out. PHNX Sports here on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed. You got the alerts set up because if anything does happen roster-wise, we're going to go live and we're going to talk all about it and get your thoughts as well in the chat. We love the chat. We love everybody chiming in today via super chats and also those who went and watched the game today and tagged us on Twitter with their seats. Our guy Dylan got to catch up with Monty Austinford.
Awesome
How about
picture.
that? Monty Austinford said it's playoffs this season. Is that what he told Dylan?
Hey, Monty, let's get a pass rusher and then we can have that conversation. Dylan, I hope Dylan was grilling them on what was going on. Hey, Monty, I really like the team, by the way. I'm not impressed with what you got at edge rusher. What's the plan there, Monty? I don't see you working the phones, but great stuff from Dylan. Andrew was there, got some autographs. Our guy Sean was there. Brian was there. Thanks to everybody shouting us out on Twitter. Great vibes. My two special boys on this podcast safely traveled back from Indy after joint practices earlier this week to help us do this post-game show. And we got one more.
One more.
Fire it up.
Folks, this is coming to an end. The preseason is coming to an end.
Mercifully.
Yeah, thank God.
But
right?
We'll all get together next Sunday and laugh collectively at Desmond Ridder's expense. Don't you worry about that.
We might fire these mics up and these cameras up in the third quarter, depending on
do a
what
little
that
watch
game.
along.
Yeah, maybe a watch along.
You guys ready for the Bo Nix show?
Are we even going to see Bo Nix? Is he going to play in the preseason finale?
I need Xavier Thomas to eliminate Zach Wilson. That's what I need. If Victor Dimukeje whiffs on Zach Wilson, you might have to cut him sight unseen. That's what I think about that. But don't cut us out of your life. Subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. We appreciate everybody.
Yep.
Like this video. It helps us exponentially. We've been asking everybody, get this to 300 likes. In the meantime, for Bo Brack, Damon Dawg, I'm Johnny Venerable. We are back on a Monday. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.